Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with the West Palhurst, Earl Boyles, Gilbert Heights, Gilbert Park, and Lincoln Park Back to School Family presentation and Q&A. It's exciting. We have 156 families that have logged in, and that number is slowly increasing. So we're going to get started here, but before we do, just a couple of housekeeping items. You'll notice that there isn't a chat link or a chat box. We have that turned off on purpose, and also the attendees, the families are muted, and the videos have been disabled for everyone. If you have a question during the presentation, please use the Q&A box that is located in the lower portion of your Zoom window. I'm going to turn it over to Aide, and she will kick it off for our Spanish language families.
Thank you, Derek. Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Aide Juárez Valerio y soy la coordinadora de familias para el Distrito Escolar David Douglas. Para poder ingresar al cuarto de interpretación en español, en la parte de abajo de su pantalla, usted mirará un icono del mundo. Es un globo que parece un mundo. Haga clic en el icono y seleccione español. Y automáticamente usted entrará al cuarto de interpretación. Voy a repetir este paso. Para acceder al cuarto de interpretación a español, en la pantalla usted encontrará un icono del mundo, es un globo donde dice interpretación o en inglés dice interpretation. Haga clic y cuando haga clic, por favor, seleccione español y automáticamente usted será transferido para escuchar esta presentación o esta sesión en español. Si usted no mira el icono del mundo en su pantalla, usted quizás tiene en la parte de abajo donde dice more o más con 3 puntos. Por favor, haga clic donde dice more y le encontrará otra pantalla y en esa pantalla usted va a seleccionar interpretación del lenguaje. Cuando usted encuentre interpretación del lenguaje, por favor selecciónelo y después haga clic a español. Cuando haga clic a español, por favor seleccione Done, que usted lo podrá localizar en la esquina superior a su derecha. Ahora le voy a dar la plataforma a nuestra directora de la escuela Earl Boyles, la directora Erica Guinea. Now, thank you, everyone. Now I will give the platform for our principal at Earl Boyles, Mrs. Erica Guinea. Thank you.
Well, good evening, families. We are so happy to see, well, we can't see you, but we are so happy that you are here with us. I do wish we could see you, though, to make it a little bit more personal. But I do want to welcome you tonight and to thank you for your time, because I know we are all anxiously awaiting that first day of school. And I know there are lots of questions out there. And we hope that tonight, as we move through the slides with information, that we will have a second portion of the meeting where we will have time for your questions. I do want you to know that we are going to have time for questions, but we may not get to all of them. And I'm saying that up front, so there's not a level of frustration for people. I want you to know that we will have our personal contact information on a slide at the end of the presentation and up during questions, so that please take that information down so you can contact us directly to get those questions answered, because that is super important that we have all the information that we have together as we move forward so we can set this year up for success for your children. So I am going to, Derek, go ahead and advance. We'd like to do an introduction of our principals. So you could see all of our smiling faces there. As Aide said, my name is Erica Guinea, and I'm the very proud principal of Earl Boyles. Go Bulldogs, woof, woof, woof. And turn it over to Barb.
Good evening, my name is Barb Kingley and I am the proud principal of Gilbert Heights, and we are the Mustangs, and I have been with the district for 34 years.
Hello families, I'm Stacy Moncrief and I'm the proud principal at Gilbert Park. I've been in the district for 21 years and have spent the last 10 years here at Gilbert Park. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hola, todos. Welcome, everyone. I'm Ceci de Valdenebro, the proud principal at Lincoln Park, and we are the Lions. And I don't know what's the noise that Lions make in English, friends. Sorry.
Good evening, everybody. I am Susan Olds, the very proud principal at West Powellhurst Elementary, and we are Wildcats, and this is going into my 7th year here in David Douglas.
Next slide, Derek. Okay, we just want to go over the agenda so you know what to expect tonight. We're going to start off with just talking about why we're here tonight, and then talk about what comprehensive distance learning is, so we have a try to communicate a clear understanding of that. We also want to ensure that we have a high quality and effective education planned for your students, and we want to give you an opportunity to ask questions and hopefully get them answered tonight. And if not, we'll follow up with you. I know. Okay, sorry. So I want to acknowledge that we gather at Earl Boyles, Gilbert Heights, Gilbert Park, Lincoln Park, and West Powellhurst schools on the traditional land of the Clackamas and the Cowlitz people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. As educators, we recognize the special role that we can serve in ensuring an equitable education for all of our students. Next slide, Derek.
And so this is really us just acknowledging that we've had dual pandemics over our last few months. We've really been fundamentally changed, and we've seen our nation brought to its knees by these 2 pandemics. Our nation's healthcare system and our first responders have been pushed to their breaking point, and as they work to address COVID-19. In addition, we've seen a lot of social unrest with the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and recently with the incident in Kenosha with Jacob Blake. And so there's countless others, and our society has to come to terms and grapple with America's long history of systemic racism and oppression. So we've also seen how our Portland community has come together to protect our most at-risk students in our community. And excuse me, we wanted to see how these pandemics, through it all, our communities can remain strong. Next slide, Derek. Thank you. So, you know, this is really an acknowledgement for you. We as educators, and most or many of us are parents, we acknowledge how difficult this online education is for our families and for teachers. And we do understand that this is a time to lift each other up with hope and grace and support each other in this circumstances which are not ideal. And certainly I can tell you from working with many educators, we all miss being in the building with your children. Next slide, Derek.
Okay, so why comprehensive distance learning? So Governor Brown and the Oregon Department of Education, they released some metrics a few weeks ago that we need to comply with. And in order to have schools in person, we need to meet those metrics. And unfortunately, we are still far from meeting those metrics, and that is the reason why we have to start the school year with comprehensive distance learning. Next slide, Derek. So what is comprehensive distance learning? Comprehensive distance learning is education via virtually. So that means that students are going to be learning at home through their computers. So as of today, we will go with comprehensive distance learning from September until December. And our hope is that we will be back in schools in January 4th. And of course, during this comprehensive distance learning time, we are going to focus on academics, and we want to develop strong relationships with our students. And as always, we are here to support you. Next, Derek. So for comprehensive distance learning, we have three very important terms that we need to remember. One of them is synchronous learning. This means that students are going to be live with adults. So they will be seeing each other and they will be seeing their friends, which I'm pretty excited about. The other one is asynchronous learning. Students, during this time, students will be learning at their own pace. They can use videos that teachers are posting, or they might be reading books or things like that. But the idea during this time is for students to learn at their own pace. And then for applied learning, this is a time in where students will be also offline, deepening their learning. Next slide. Our guiding principles during comprehensive distance learning, we are going to ensure safety and wellness for our staff and our students. As I was telling you before, we are going to cultivate strong connections and relationships. We will center on equity and we will innovate. This is new to all of us, so here we are. Next, Derek. And we wanted to highlight some of the differences between distance learning and comprehensive distance learning from spring to fall. I know some of you were frustrated about spring, so this is how things are going to look in the fall. So instruction, we are going to increase the learning time, and teachers will be facilitating that learning for all of our students. So as I was telling you before, students will have more opportunities for those synchronous learnings, those live moments with their teachers and their classmates. Relationships, we will do daily check-ins and daily peer interaction, and we will take attendance. Family engagement and communication. So we will have family connections at least 4 times per year, and students will receive feedback on a regular basis. And digital learning needs, students will have a digital curriculum, and they will have their devices, and we will have more tutorials and support for our families. Now I'm done.
Next slide, Derek. So we did, as a district, a lot of stakeholder engagement outreach. We really wanted to hear from our community about what worked and what didn't work in the spring when we quickly rushed into distance learning. And so after that, we learned a lot from you. And so here's the lessons that we learned. We learned that families had different needs and priorities, and that we needed to be flexible in the supports that we provided. We learned that parents wanted more instruction from their teachers, that having different platforms was challenging, and that having a consistent one would be preferred and more ideal. We heard that you needed more clear and consistent communication, that you wanted your children held to higher standards of accountability, and that you wanted their progress to be measured and communicated. We also heard that there was more social and emotional supports needed, and that we needed to continue to partner with our families. And so we took all of this information and helped us guide our plans and what we're going to be rolling out this year for our distance learning. Next slide. So I want to share with you what you can expect from us this year, our administrators and our amazing teachers and staff. Our goal, first and foremost, is to build connections with you, to get to know your family, your child, understand their dreams, their joys, their interests, and build on that to create an amazing learning experience. We will care for your child even from a distance, just as we would if they were with us in the school building classrooms. We'll continue to grow and care for the child you share with us every day. We'll learn from where your children are in all areas and build off their strengths and grow them from where they are, from readers, writers, and thinkers. We'll create joy even though we're all working to figure out what that looks like and how we can make that happen in a virtual environment. We have brilliant teachers who will collaborate together to innovate, to try and make the unique normal. And finally, we'll provide resources. You'll learn later in this presentation about the technology and the curriculum, in addition to meals and other resources we can provide you. Next slide. So we know we want to acknowledge that our roles are different in comprehensive distance learning. And the parent role, the family role is different. We acknowledge that it's challenging and we respect the challenges of all the new roles we're playing. We ask parents that you continue on open and ongoing communication with us so that we can continue to partner with you. So this slide includes some of those important key components that we think that will help us to do the best we can together as a team to support your child this year. Next slide. We recognize that supporting our families means we are supporting our children. So please let us know how we can help. We're going to have office hours for our staff so that you can have time to connect, ask questions, collaborate, problem solve. The district's going to have video tutorials on our district websites to help parents and to help students navigate the new technology and resources that we're using. And we'll have staff who are dedicated to technical help desk. If you run into any problems with technology and you need to pick up the phone and make a phone call, we'll have many dedicated staff to help us navigate through all those technology pitfalls we're likely to run into. Next slide.
Okay, attendance has always been important and it continues to be important in comprehensive distance learning. We know your child needs to be logging in and participating to be able to make those academic gains. So we will be asking, taking attendance every day and checking to make sure that your child is logging in and participating. We will, because we know of the challenges of maybe adhering to a specific schedule based on some of family challenges and schedules, that we will be doing attendance over a 24-hour period of time because we know that not every family is going to be able to log in exactly when the schedule might say they need to be there. So attendance is important. It's critical for their academic achievement, but also for those social connections. Next slide, Derek. So we want to talk a little bit about what the start of the year looks like. Teachers are started today, and they will continue next week in planning and doing some school communication out to you as families. And then starting the week of the 14th is our week of welcome, where students will do some soft starts. They'll be logging in and meeting with their teachers for small portions of the day as they build up their stamina. We'll be focusing on setting expectations and building relationships, doing virtual open houses, and teachers will be reaching out and making personal contact with all their families. Starting the next week on September 21st, we expect online academic instruction to begin to its fullest extent. Next, Derek.
All right, Chromebooks and technology. So this year, which is different from last year, or last spring, I should say, we are going to provide each student with a Chromebook. We do have a distribution plan in place. You can access that on our district website, but also for elementary, it is going to be that we will be distributing Chromebooks to each of our families starting the week of September 8th through the 11th. So that is next week. And you'll have two different times that you will be available to go pick up a device if needed, a Chromebook. So you can come at 9 to 11 or 1 to 4. We'll have volunteers there ready to greet you and ready to get you checked out. You'll have those 4 different sites for distribution. So Ron Russell Middle School, Ventura Park Elementary School, Gilbert Heights, and Cherry Park are distribution sites. And a couple of things that you might need to know is that you will want to bring your student ID or some kind of an ID needed as you check out those devices, because that's one thing you will be asked for. If you're uncertain about that, please contact your school office and they can help get that number for you. Also, also just a little piece about technology. I know that we are working on some grants right now around supporting families that may not have the connectivity that they might need to be successful. And there'll be more information coming out regarding that, if that's something that you may need. Next slide, please, Derek. We do have, as mentioned earlier, a new curriculum. It is specifically an online curriculum that will be accessed, which includes a new platform as well, because it was one of the things that we heard loud and clear from families where the multiple platforms were a nightmare. I 100% agree with you. And so our new curriculum is called Fuel Ed. And starting tomorrow, all of our teachers in kindergarten through 5th grade will be trained on Fuel Ed over the next 2 days. It is a comprehensive program that includes all subjects. So example, reading, writing, math, science, even PE and music will be taught on this platform. The platform itself is called Neuro. And so it is a secure platform. So from what I'm understanding, it is secure in the sense that if you're taping live lessons, the students would be blocked out and it would allow the teacher to be videotaped, not the students, because I know that was also a concern for many of our families. Teachers will still be able to supplement. So families or teachers who were familiar with Seesaw or Google Classroom and had really neat activities that they might have had in those particular platforms will be able to link into that, and which is super nice. And I know that teachers are excited about that. One other little point of interest that you might need to know about is we are going to be starting that week of the 14th on a familiar platform. So your teachers might reach out to you on Google Classroom, for example, because that is something students already have accounts for. They're familiar with that, and it will be an ease in for students and families into that Neuro platform, because we want an opportunity to kind of do that gradual entry and build a bridge so it's really strong, and people have an opportunity to experience that. And I know that a lot of families, I was just talking with Dennis, one of our family members at Earl Boyles the other day about curriculum, and there was some question about whether or not the district was going to share curriculum with the families. Yes. So I know that Brooke O'Neill, our curriculum director, is working with Fuel Ed directly to develop a custom video for David Douglas that will be shared with family, and it will be a high-level overview of the student experience in a Fuel Ed platform. Hopefully this will be finished this week, so we can be sending that out to our families via email. And then also they're thinking about having some live virtual sessions for families where a Fuel Ed rep will be demonstrating the student dashboard and able to answer questions. We're also considering doing a curriculum night later once we kind of start introducing a curriculum night. So we'll have an opportunity to have some shared experiences around what that new curriculum is going to look like, and also an opportunity for, you know, families and students to ask questions, because here you go, guys, we're sitting right next to you on the bench of learning, right? I mean, it's a new curriculum for us as well as for you, as well as for the children. So there's going to be questions, there are going to be growing pains, and I think we just are going to anticipate that. But the important thing is keep asking the questions so we can get to the crux of the issues as we move forward. Next slide, Derek. Sorry, guys. Okay, so with schedules, I'm going to show you a schedule here in a minute on the next slide, but we will be meeting with students 5 days a week. Some of you may have had the opportunity to look at ODE's guidance and the amount of time for live contact with students. So we will be meeting with students 5 days a week. It will look different on Friday because that is an applied learning time. That is where students are taking what they learned and applying it to independent practice, maybe through a project-based learning activity or so forth. There will be live and recorded lessons as well as independent time throughout the day. There's going to be variation in times based on grade levels. Typically at this time of the year, you all would have in your hand a block schedule. You would know what the day looked like. It's not a typical year. So we are going to be sending out some information, but as I mentioned, there will be variations in times based on the grade levels, but within some similarities too. You'll see a framework for a schedule. You're going to see that there's going to be small and whole group instruction throughout the day based on what the student needs. In order to differentiate on what an individual student needs, we have that opportunity to break the kids into small groups based on what formative assessment is giving and telling us how to direct that instruction. As Earl mentioned earlier, we also will have office hours. So if there's a question that you have, your child has, you're going to have an opportunity to connect with the classroom teacher. And that's going to be super important time because you're going to want to clarify any questions as we move forward through this process. Also in the schedule, you're going to see that there are frequent and intentional screen breaks. Being online from 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. is nobody's idea of a good day. So we will have a lot of screen time that will be breaks. There'll be movement breaks, get up and move. Next slide, Derek. I'm going to just move right into that schedule so I can show them. You'll notice that we have a 12 to 1 lunch and movement break. That's intentional. That is across all levels, elementary, middle, and high school. This is a time where you would, we're going to talk about lunches in a little bit, but basically you would have an opportunity to go get a sack lunch, to do movement, move around, take a break. But anyways, as I mentioned, you'll see movement breaks throughout that. You'll also see specials on that. Specials for elementary school is music, PE, and library. So at any point in the day, like your child would experience that throughout the week, one of those 3 each day. Let's see, what else do I want to say about that? Oh, I forgot to mention preschool. If I have any preschool families in the building, I want to let you know that your platform will not be Neuro. It will stay with Seesaw because it's more developmentally appropriate for 3 and 4-year-olds. So if anybody's here with preschool, just to let you know, they will have a similar schedule, but of course it's developmentally appropriate with very short sessions. That's kind of an overview of our schedule. Next slide, please.
Excellent. So you are typically expected to have a $20 supply fee at the beginning of the year that helps buy supplies for your child in their classroom, and the teachers do that ordering. We are not going to be charging that $20 supply fee this year. That's while we're in distance learning. If we go back into the building in January, then there will be a prorated amount. So you will not be expected to pay the full $20 if we're just in the building for a partial year. We are trying to put together some supply kits for each of our students with basic supplies in them, and those will be made available at the school buildings. And we're currently putting together an order list for those supplies based on what we think we need, and we'll know more after the teachers do their Fuel Ed training this week. One other thing I wanted to let you know is the curriculum Fuel Ed will be providing supplies because they know what the lessons are asking for. And so they're putting together kits for every student that covers all of their English language arts, writing, math. There'll be science, health, and art supplies in there as well. So I'm excited to see what those kits will have for each of you. And those will be sent to the building for the teachers to be able to pass out to the students. Next slide, Derek. And so I wanted to just reassure you all that breakfast and lunch will still be very similar to what it was in the spring and all throughout the summer. We're still going to be serving breakfast and lunch to all kids who are enrolled in David Douglas schools. It's still going to be a grab and go meal. And again, it will be breakfast and lunch served together. So when you pick that up, the serving times are going to be 12 to 1 every day. And so it's important that you keep in mind you're going to be getting a breakfast, and it sounds like, you know, a bigger lunch, but the breakfast could be for the next day, of course. And our cafeteria staff will be putting those together. So they're going to be picked up from 12 to 1 at your neighborhood school, but they're also going to be distributed at bus stops. And I would say don't expect necessarily your child's bus stop to be the exact place, because it might be different stops than what we actually had for regular bus stops. But throughout the district, there will be a bus that goes to a location that we convey to you very clearly starting September 14th. That bus will stay there for an hour and give your child time to go and get a grab and go meal. I also want to add that if you are picking up for other kids, like sending one person to go get, 4 or 5 kids for yourself and the neighbor kids, they're going to want to know the names of the kids that you're picking up for. So just have that on a piece of paper and help with the distribution for those grab and go meals. Next slide, Derek.
Okay, so now we are going to talk about grading. As we were telling you before in some of our slides, students are going to get feedback 3 times a year, and that is going to be through our proficiency-based grading system. You will receive those report cards to see the progress of your students, and they'll have, the instruction will be aligned to the grade level standards. So assessments will will be given to our students so that we can monitor their progress. So you will receive those report cards. Next. And then this is a very important slide, because we know that these are difficult times for some of you. So we have to keep working as a team. I think that the most important thing for all of our students to be successful through comprehensive distance learning is that we need to work as a team. So these are some things that you could do to support us in this new endeavor for all of us. So the first one is take care of yourself and give yourself some grace, because we will be learning this together. Okay, we are going to make mistakes along the way, and that's okay. So take care of yourself and give yourself some grace. One very important thing is having that clear and daily routine for our kids to follow, so that they get in the school mood, right? They are going to wake up at the same time, have breakfast at the same time, so that there is an educational routine at home as well. And in order for students to really learn, we need to find a quiet space for them to be able to learn. We already talked about a daily schedule, and Ms. Olds was telling us about the supplies that all of our students are going to receive their supplies. So have them ready in their workspace. And we, of course, encourage all of our students to attend every live session so that they can interact with their teacher, their classmates, and it is so much fun to be in a live session all together and sharing our experiences and our learning. So these are things you can do to support us, and as always, please reach out to us. We are here to support you. Next.
Okay, whoa. We tried to do it really quickly so we would have more time for Q&A, because I know that was super important to many families that have talked to us all. We've heard from the district. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to have Mr. Long, our Director of Education, moderate the questions for us, and we'll just be popcorning the answers. Again, what I'm going to say right now is, Derek, I want you to switch over to the next slide, please. Our contact information is there, and this is so important to our families that are online. If you do not get your question answered tonight, please reach out and call. All of us, we will be available to you, and we want to answer your questions, because what we know, we want you to know, because we're in this together as partners, and if we don't have the same information, it's very difficult. And I know it's been frustrating because there's been a lot of information come out from ODE, and changing very quickly. And so, you know, sometimes it might seem like, oh my gosh, that we don't have all the information. Well, it changes fast. It's not that anybody's withholding anything. It's just that we are trying to stay on top of it just as much as everybody. So ask the questions to help us guide the opening of this school year. We appreciate them. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Long. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Principal Kane. Okay, it's so exciting, folks, that we had over 275 people on this call, and we really are just very, very excited to present this information and to share our planning for the school year for your children. As you know, they only have 1 year in their grade, and we want to make it the best it can possibly be. Let's get to some of your questions, folks, and we'll start with Karina. She has a question, and it's, are pre-K receiving a Chromebook?
I can take that, Mr. Long. Hi, Karina, how are you? I'm glad you're here. I just wanted to say, Karina, that I believe our preschool students are going to be getting iPads again, because our iPads last year, if you remember, they were old and they were not compatible with Seesaw. So I believe that preschool, because of their little fingers and developmentally where they're at, will be getting iPads again. Thank you for asking that question, Karina.
Next question comes from Aaron, and Aaron asks, can we use the Chromebook we got from school in the spring, or do we need to exchange it?
Yes, you can use your Chromebook from the spring. You do not need to exchange it. You just keep using that Chromebook, especially I'm sure your child's very fond of it. So keep it and start it up in the fall.
I'll just add to that, though, if you have a Chromebook that's not working from the spring, you're welcome to bring that back to one of our sites that's doing distribution and exchange it. So if anything's wrong with it, we'll take it back and give you hopefully a working better one.
Next question comes from William and Brenda, and they ask, is Fuel Ed the same platform being used across the district at all grade levels? For example, would a middle school child and elementary school child both be using Fuel Ed?
Hi, William and Brenda. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad to see your name there. Just to answer that question, Fuel Ed is a K-5 curriculum. Middle school, I believe, is using Google Classroom, again, similar platform. So, I mean, it's different than Fuel Ed. Fuel Ed is just for K-5.
Okay, thank you, Principal Gane. Next question comes from Andrea. She asks, can you briefly give an overview of the Fuel Ed, Neuro, and Parent View, and any other platforms? And she also asks, will there be trainings for any of these?
Thank you, Andrea, for asking. This is Mrs. Olds. So Fuel Ed is the curriculum that we're going to be using, and it's hosted on the platform Neuro. And we haven't got specific training on that yet. Just administrators have got a sneak peek, and then the teachers will be doing their training this week. And so that is different than Parent View, because Parent View is the student information system that we use called Synergy. And you can log into your Parent View of Synergy to look at attendance and grades and communicate with the teacher. So it's kind of like comparing the student information system with like Google Classroom that we did before. So instead of Google Classroom, we're using Neuro, and the curriculum is Fuel Ed. I hope that answers your question. Oh, and the trainings, yes. We absolutely, so the teachers are getting trained this week, and we know that it's not going to happen overnight. So we're going to make sure that we continue with that professional development over the next couple weeks. And then after the, we called it the week of welcome, and we're going to be getting kids excited and introduced into what Fuel Ed and Neuro will look like. And the teachers, for example, can show kids what that will look like while they're having Google Classroom sessions. And then I imagine that schools will plan their family introduction into how to help your child with Fuel Ed. I would definitely say if there are any questions as you go, definitely ask the teacher. I know I would love it if our parents, if enough of them have the same question, then I would say let's do an evening training on it and get that going. And we have coaches to do that.
Thank you, Principal Olds. Next question comes from Deb. And Derek, this might be a question for you. Deb asks, will there be some sort of masking filter used for backgrounds on live classes in which our homes will not be visible to the whole class?
That's a great question. We are using, it depends on the level. This is for elementary. I'm not sure what Neuro has as far as that goes. If you have high school and middle school students, they will be using Google Meet. And as far as I know, at this time, Google Meet does not have that feature. So if it is a concern, please work with your classroom teacher. And I'm sure that they will be okay with your student not showing the video. Again, we don't want to be intrusive. We want to be inclusive and make sure that your student, your child feels welcome, and communication. So if you communicate with the principal or the teacher that you don't want the video on, I'm sure that will be just fine. Thank you, Andy.
Next question comes from an anonymous attendee, but they have a question. It's a great one in regards to specials, PE specifically. They ask, will there be adjusted plans available for students who cannot do things like jumping jacks or other large physical movements? Unfortunately, they say their apartment company is not as forgiving when it comes to noise and jumping.
Hi, great question. Thank you for asking that. What I would do with that specifically, because it sounds like there are some limitations in the apartment and some restrictions. You know, what I would do is, I don't know who you are, but if I could look at you, I would say this to you. I would say, I would please connect with your PE teacher directly and let them know the limitations that you're experiencing within that environment. Just like we would if we were in the gym and there was a problem with the floor, right? We would have to modify and adjust that. And so I would have that conversation directly with your PE teacher, let them know, and they can help support that and modify and adjust the curriculum as needed. That was a great question. Thank you for that.
LJ asks, what are other families doing that both parents work with small children and keeping them on schedule and can't afford a tutor or caregiver?
Well, I would be happy to at least acknowledge and say we understand. We don't have all the answers for that, but we do understand that that is very difficult. And while I wish that I could pull a brilliant answer, out of the computer and give for you, I would just say continue to work with the teacher and help them understand the schedule of your home. And that is one reason why we're not going to be taking attendance in the morning. For some students, their learning is going to take place in the afternoon, and we understand that.
One other thing that some of our parents are talking about is they've gotten together and done some collaborating, and that what they're doing is talking about shared space and time, but within the context of safety. So I know that I've heard some of the families talking about doing some collaborative childcare, and in exchange, like when they're at work, depending on their schedule, and of course the level of safe, your level of what you feel is safe would be required. But that's one thing that I've heard that has been pretty successful for families.
Great question. Next question comes from Lisa. She says, can you speak specifically about how all this is different for kinders?
Unfortunately, I wish, again, kind of like Ms. Old said, I wish I had a real clear answer for you about how it'll be different for kindergarten. Until we really know the curriculum, we're not going to have a clear understanding of how it will be different, but we recognize that we do have to differentiate for our students depending on their age and their developmental levels. Our kindergarten teachers had some good practice in the spring with how to engage kindergartners in a virtual way and have gotten so innovative and creative. And I know that they'll come out with some great ways this year as well to engage your children and make this a meaningful experience for them. So we're going to start off with using Google Classroom and start engaging and getting to know your children. And like I said, caring for them and learning who they are. And then as we learn this new curriculum, we'll be able to adjust it and be able to share with you more about how it will look for kindergarten versus first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. Our hope is in early October, we're going to have some curriculum nights, and that way at each grade level, we'll be able to share with you about what it will look like for your grade level. And then, like was shared, we'll also have some open house events this month in a few weeks. So at each grade level, we'll be able to share what that will look like to the best of their knowledge at this time.
Thank you, Principal Moncrief. And I know that we have some amazing kindergarten teachers in our district that are already wondering and have been thinking throughout the summer how they're best going to engage our kindergartners. And so I know that I would encourage you to be communicative with your child's teacher, as I know our kindergarten teachers will understand that and they will do the best they can to balance engagement and screen time and movement. Next question comes from Lucas. It's a great question. He says, when at home, my ASD kiddo requires an assistant provided through DD services. At school, he has no assistant. How will the students with those needs be assisted?
That's a great question, Lucas. My name's Barbara. I'm with Gilbert Heights. And the first thing I would say is, I would check with DD services and see if they can extend their time during the school day when he's doing online learning. Unfortunately, we are not able to send staff into homes, but we can reach out virtually, and we will have our special ed teacher, our speech language pathologist, and they have some assistants that can reach out virtually and try to support your student with online learning in maybe a one-to-one format. But I would start first with, once you get a schedule, and talking with the special ed teacher and the speech pathologist to get an idea from DD services if they can expand their services during the school day. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Keenly. Dennis asks, will a dress code be expected?
Hi, Dennis. I think you're the Dennis from our school. Anyways, Dennis, yeah, no, I think that dress code. So yes, David Douglas has a dress code. I would say wear something comfortable, something that covers your body parts, and something, that the children are going to be able to learn in. I think that would be fine. We have to realize that our environments at school are very different than our environments at home, but I would say just something that, that covers their body parts would be fine, and something that's comfortable. So, but not probably, which is very similar to our dress code. No offensive language. I would say similar to what our dress code is. I mean, it's open. It's and if you want follow up with that, please give me a call tomorrow. I'll be at the office.
Brian asks, will we have virtual parent-teacher conferences?
Hi, Brian. Yes, we will have virtual conferences in some way or another. Right now, we're just planning for our teachers to reach out individually to families as we're preparing to start the year. So those will be individual times for the teachers to connect with you and ask questions, find out for you to ask questions. So those are kind of an informal conferences. And then we'll have, like it was shared, we'll have multiple times through the year where we're going to touch base with you, to connect with you, to hear about how things are going. So there'll be times for conferences. And like we also shared, there will also be office hours for the teacher and staff. So be sure to reach out to them if you have questions in the meantime. You don't have to wait for those conferences that are scheduled.
Next question comes from Tanya, and Tanya asks, how will students with an IEP be receiving services? Will the SPED teacher be emailing to connect with us?
Hi, Tanya. That's a really great question. And, we want to ensure you that we are going to be doing everything we can to make sure all of our students have access to the general ed curriculum in the classroom first. And so the special education teacher will be consulting with the classroom teacher on how to differentiate and modify their assignments. But in addition to that, the special education teacher and the speech language pathologist will be reaching out to you, to every parent, and talking about what that specially designed instruction looks like and how they're going to receive that through the virtual learning. So you can expect to hear from them, and in some cases we may need to modify some IEPs, but we're hoping that we can meet all of that specially designed instruction in this format. Thank you.
This question comes from This question comes from James, and James asks, late start Wednesdays was a huge burden for working families. Will that go away?
Hi, James. Yes, we are not planning a late start Wednesday. In this draft schedule, we have shared Monday through Thursday has a real typical schedule, and then Fridays is actually still a school day for your children. They'll start off with a live synchronous session with their classroom, but the rest of the day is applied learning, so learning more at their own pace. So the day we actually do have less synchronous time. When I say synchronous, I mean live on Fridays than we will Monday through Thursday. I hope that answers your question.
Next question comes from Brian. He asks, when can we expect to meet our teacher?
I can certainly talk about that. This is Mrs. Olds. We have that, and you'll be able to reference this back in the PowerPoint if I'm not very clear, but we have that week of welcome, which will be September 14th through the 18th. And that's the time when we'll have our open houses, and many teachers will be doing their one-on-one reach out to all families. Some teachers actually want to do the one-on-one outreach earlier than that. So I wouldn't be surprised if for some people they're hearing from their teacher possibly the week before, starting on September 8th, which is just next week. So just be prepared over the next 2 weeks to get emails from your parents, or I know for us, we use School Messenger, and all of us as principals use School Messenger to get information out to families, and we'll be letting you know anything as we learn it.
This next question is anonymous. It says, will teachers be teaching from their distracted homes with animals and husbands running around in the background, or will they be teaching from their classrooms where all of their resources are at their fingertips?
I would love to answer that. You know what? I'm actually really grateful that you asked that, because that is a great question, because teachers are families just like you, right? And we have work from home spaces where we definitely try to keep distractions away. So the answer to your question is it's going to be based on what that teacher knows is best for him or her. I know in my building, I have some teachers who have said that they're going to come in on certain days and teach from their classroom. Some people came in and took things so they could go home because they have kids at home that they have to maneuver. You know, the animals barking and the kids running around can be a very real thing. And so each teacher is trying to figure out the best way to have their undivided attention for your child. At the same time, they're trying to take care of their own kids.
Next question is a great one. It's from an anonymous attendee, and they ask, I'm worried about my second grader being able to work the computer independently. She'll be at Champions during the day to do her distance learning, and I'm worried she won't speak up if she doesn't understand something.
Hi, I'll try to take that question. I know that Champion staff will be there to help her. I know that they're skilled staff, and so hopefully they will be there to help her speak up or to stay engaged. But I think that's a great thing to share with her teacher when you talk to her teacher, because then her teacher will be able to reach out to her and use some strategies to engage her if she knows she's reluctant. So please reach out, communicate with the teacher. And if you feel like that she's still struggling with that, keep letting the teacher know, because there's little tips and strategies the teacher can, tricks and strategies, I should say, the teacher could use to help call on her and check in with her, and maybe some personal phone calls.
Next question says, once a school decides on a more detailed schedule, will we get an email about it, or do we need to contact our student schools or go online to find it?
Once we get, we're working on that this week. So we have block schedules as schools. And when we go through the Fuel Ed training, what will happen is each grade level, as I talked about, this is Erica, there'll be some variation by grade level based on the Fuel Ed training that's going to be happening over the next couple of days. Then what will happen is there'll be grade level schedules that will be created, and teachers, as they reach out to you, will be sharing those with you so that you know what the schedule is. Also, typically, buildings will post those up on their website as well once those become solid. We just don't want to post something up and then go, whoops, sorry, we have to change it again, because that creates chaos for all of us. But so that's kind of the process in which we're doing right now. So again, those teachers are customizing them by grade level, by individual teachers, with variation based on what the students need. And then those will go out to families, so you can set that up, put it on your refrigerator, however you want to work that to schedule your day, because we know everybody that's here on this chat right now has a very different schedule, and you know that consistency and routines are so important to all of us.
Next question is from a Lincoln Park parent. They ask here, my son at Lincoln Park is only going to be in 3rd grade and still is not good with the computer. Are we allowed to help him through it when needed?
Hello, I'm Ceci. Of course, you are more than welcome to help your kid. And as I said before, we are a team, so please feel free to reach out if you need our support. We are here to help.
Next question comes from, it's anonymous. It says, Champions is open and supposed to help with distance learning if parents can afford the cost. I understand it's not a cost families expected to endure. Any idea? Question mark.
I know that's the elephant in the room right now. I'm going to just call it out as it is. You guys, it is going to be super hard. Families are working just as teachers are working with their children at home, and it's super difficult. And I mean, I wish I had an answer for you, and I apologize that I do not, but I mean, let's just call it is super hard. And that question, I'm looking at the questions being asked, that question comes up more frequently than most. How do I manage my children when I'm having to work? And I wish there was an easy answer. And, you know, like, how do I pay for daycare when we didn't typically have to budget for this? Because when school was in session, the children went to school and I went to work. This is different, and we don't have an answer for that, and I'm so sorry. I wish I did. I don't, but like what I'm hearing, just like I mentioned earlier about families doing some collaborative childcare, if you feel safe with that, I mean, to try to cut costs, but that's not the answer for everyone. So I know that Champions used to do scholarshiping. I don't know if they do anymore, but that would be worth investigating. Same with the YMCA. Sometimes they'll do a sliding scale. But again, I mean, that's truly, I think, a big conversation that we need to address. Childcare just in general across our nation is an issue, but that's a much broader question. But for us personally right now in this moment, it's extremely challenging. And I'm sorry, we don't have an answer to provide for that, but I would check with Champions to see if there is some kind of a scholarshiping or sliding scale.
Thank you, Principal Ganay. That's a great question and one that's very difficult to answer. We've had lots of questions in the Q&A about TAG. And we're glad that you're asking those questions. And I think we'll direct that to Ms. Brooke O'Neill, who is our Director of Curriculum. And Brooke, how would you say that TAG is what is TAG going to look like in comprehensive distance learning?
Hello and good evening to everybody. I am excited to say that we are still going to be offering TAG services. So Lanny Dazell is our TAG coordinator and tag teacher in the district. So she's waiting for some school schedules to be finalized, but she is ready to serve and will be communicating with families as soon as she has a schedule for you. And she can give you more specifics about what tag will look like this year. But we do know that tag courses will happen virtually. We're looking at possibly offering those courses on Fridays during the applied learning days, but that is still all to be determined. So be looking for communication from Ms. Dazel soon.
Thank you, Ms. O'Neill. Our next question, we have had a lot of questions too about tag and also about IDs. And Derek, maybe this would be a question that you could help with. And the questions are around, if I'm a pre-K, do I get a school ID number and how do I get that? Does my ID roll over from year to year?
Great, that's a great question. I might have to ask Principal Ganay to help me with this. I do know that once you get the ID, David Douglas ID number in kindergarten, it goes with you as long as your child is with David Douglas, and the same goes for the state ID number. Once they get that number, it goes all the way through with them at David Douglas, but I'm not sure about the pre-K. Erica, do you know the answer to that? And if we don't, we will get you the answer.
Yeah, I would say yes. What you'll want to do for the pre-K IDs is just, again, call the office and they'll have that for you. Out of Synergy, they can pull that out for you because as they come in, they're assigned that. There's a number they're assigned that you can use. So for pre-K, same rule. And Willow, thank you for asking that question about passwords being reset. Like Derek said, they will just continue to roll over for your son.
Jocelyn asks a question and says, I know the finalized schedule is not done yet, but are the start times, the end times, and lunches on the sample schedule in the slideshow going to be the same?
Thank you. Thank you for asking that. Yes, we have worked really hard across all the elementary schools to have a schedule that is consistent. So we will start at 9 o'clock and we will end the day at 2 o'clock with students. Teachers will be available before that and then after that, so they'll have some office hours and be available to plan and help support parents. Lunch will be consistent. Right now we have it scheduled, I believe, from 12 to 1 at every school. So that is fairly consistent across the district. May adjust a little bit at some of the other levels, but it's fairly close. Thank you.
Next question asks, if the county meets the metrics to open the school prior to January 4th, will school return to in-person instruction, or is it January 4th no matter what the circumstances? And I can answer that one. I think our school board made a bold decision in making us or having us be in school until after winter break. However, what I can say is if we do meet the metrics in Multnomah County, I'm confident that our school board will want to revisit that move and possibly get our students in school as soon as we can. Of course, we are always centered around the guiding principle of safety. And if we have met that metric in Multnomah County, we will definitely look at that. However, that is a school board decision. Next question comes from Thomas. He says, my 5-year-old son is hyper and won't sit down for more than an hour. How can we help him?
Thomas, that's a really good question, and it can be really challenging, I know, to get someone who has attentional issues and just sit down and focus. So I would say, we can the setting up a routine is really going to help him the most. And, he's going to have to work up that stamina to be able to attend to longer and longer tasks. But I would have some real work with, you can work with the school counselor, reach out to her. And, we have other support staff, special education teacher, even though he may not be identified, they always have some really good strategies on setting up a routine and setting up some structure teachers for him, and even just some rewards and how can you help him build that attention. Start small, but expand and expand. That and making sure the classroom teacher understands that he has some attentional issues, can really work on maybe reducing some assignments so that he can experience success. And then again, work that up over time as he experiences success and is able to attend to tasks for longer periods of time.
Okay, folks, we're going to go on for about 5 more minutes. We will not get to all of the questions, of course. We wish we could, but we're going to try to answer questions until 6:10, and then we will conclude for the evening. Next question comes from Lisa, a great question. She asks, I'm a parent also concerned about the amount of screen time my child will be having. Is there any way that amount of screen time can be reduced for elementary students? I've heard the same concern from many parents at our school and others, including some who have decided to homeschool their children solely because of screen time factor. We are in the process of trying to make that decision ourselves.
That's a really good concern, and it's one that we struggle with as well. So I talked about the day being from 9 to 2, but during that time, we don't want them just sitting in front of the screen. So some of those sessions will be the synchronous, the live sessions, but they may not be 30 minutes. They may be 15 minutes, and then the child is given a task or an assignment to do, not in front of the computer possibly. So it's not all just sitting in front of the computer. We want them to take breaks. We know it's healthy for them to get up and move. We've built in a movement break in the day. They'll have PE throughout the week. And I know our teachers work really hard to build in movement breaks within their lessons too. We know that, again, building up that stamina to be able to sit in front of a computer is something that's going to take some time. But we also know it's not healthy for any of us to sit in front of a computer for long extended periods of time. So just know that the days may sound like a long day, but all of that time is not sitting in front of the screen. So good concern, and I would say, really communicate with your child's teacher if you feel like it is too much. And again, we can, individualize for your child.
Next question comes from Karen. She asks, when would they hand out the iPads for the preschool students? And will it be okay if we can't meet up in all live sessions due to my work schedule?
Hi, Karen. So yes, the iPads will be distributed the same week that we have Chromebooks, I believe. And yes, it would be fine if they do not meet up in all live sessions. I know the preschool teachers across the district have met, and really with understanding that 3- and 4-year-olds, that connection, one-on-one connection, super important to engage little ones. And so there's some agreements upon what that could look like. They're going to work with individual families to find out what that looks like for you. And again, with preschool, they are using Seesaw, which is a different platform. So it will look a little different for our youngest learners, but I know the families will be, that connection is going to be super important. And so I would just talk to your child's teacher to let them know what your schedule is, so you guys can negotiate a time that works best for you to make those connections.
Derek, this question might be for you. It says, my kid was allowed to sign up for social media accounts on the school computers by just clicking on the use of my Google account links. How will you prevent that?
That's a really good question. Thank you so much for asking that question. So over the summer, the IT department took a look at our policies and practices and procedures, and for comprehensive distance learning, we have blocked all social media. So when a student is logged into a district Chromebook, this is only for district Chromebooks, they will be filtered as though they were sitting in a David Douglas school, and they will not have access to social media. One point of clarification for social media last year was that students were not able to post but they were able to view social media because there were things, especially at the high school level, where different things were posted that students would need to or possibly need to view. But those have been blocked because we have heard concerns from parents and definitely took those into consideration.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, right now the time is 6:10 and we're about ready to wrap up, and we are really, again, thankful that all of you tuned in tonight and you care so much about your child's education. We do too. And so as we wrap up, we'll hear from each principal so they can say their goodbyes to you this evening. Let's start with Principal Keenly, Gilbert Heights.
So I want to thank everybody for listening, tuning in, and hopefully you've learned some wonderful information to help you prepare, to help your child prepare for the school year. We are excited to launch this school year and just looking forward to partnering with you and providing the best education we can together. So have a good evening. Thank you for being here.
Hello, everybody. This is Stacy Moncrief again from Gilbert Park, and hello, shout out to all my Gilbert Park parents out there. It was so great to be able to jump on here tonight and be able to share some information with you and to get some of your fantastic questions. If Gilbert Park parents, if any of your questions were not answered in the chat, please take my email address down and send them to me via email. And just like Ms. Keenly said, I'm always excited for every school year, and this one is no different. It's presenting us with some new challenges, but I know together we can take them on and make this the best it can be. So thank you.
Hi, everybody. This is Susan Olds from West Palhurst. Hello to all of our West Palhurst Wildcat families and to everybody. We know that it was taking time out of your day to meet with us, and we're very, very excited and very grateful. We know that this interesting start of the school year really can be helpful and work for your child when we work together. So I just want to say thank you for being here. It shows you really want to participate. I appreciate it. If you didn't get your questions answered, please continue to work with your principal. I love it when families call and email me, and we can even meet virtually. So I hope you all have a good evening, and we look forward to working with you and with the teachers.
This is Ceci de Valdenebro. Shout out as Stacy to my Lincoln Park families. Gracias a todos por estar acá. As I said before, we are a team and we need to work together. That's the only way in where we will be successful. So let's work together, and we are here to support you and your students.
Hey families, Bulldogs, this is Mrs. Gane, Erica, closing up the evening, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here tonight. I recognize there are a lot of questions. I'm looking at 49 open questions that are in front of us. They came in really fast. We had an opportunity to answer 120 of them. However, I do want you to know I did not, if your names were not attached to your questions, I'm going to try to find all of the Bulldogs that asked them, but email me. You have my email and you have the phone number there. Please, please, please reach out, because it's the questions that are unanswered that are causing apprehension for all of us, and not just families, but everybody that's sitting in this room. So please ask the questions. It'll help us form a strong start to the year so we can provide the best education for that little child that sits between both of us. That is your child, our student. We'd like to thank you for tonight, and we appreciate your time and questions. And again, please reach out to us. We're all very eager to hear from you, and I mean that sincerely. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful evening.